Hey guys, Akariss here, bringing you another individual unit analysis. And no, that's not Sharena, who is obviously covered in the title of the video, but I wanted to make a fast and quick comparison to the most likely candidate who you would consider when it comes to a blue infantry tank. And as you no doubt can see on the left side, we have Donald. Now Donald's actually a pretty good tank. I've been for him for a long time. Like I've been saying, he's pretty good. He's infantry. His only weakness is pretty much being a color, which is blue, but you know, pretty much 80% or 90% of this cast has a color, so it's not really something exclusive to him. You know, another comparison could be Noe, but she suffers from dragon weakness and being blue, so that's a huge difference. Donald has high BST, he's infantry, he has access to Casablanca, which is a really good weapon, and he has a decent stat spread, pretty much covering most bases when it comes to tanking. Res is decent enough once you bump it up using light blessings, resistance boon, which I think is a super boon, and honestly Casablanca providing dull range against most magical hits gives him favorable matchups even against things like Nino, who otherwise would beat him. So solid unit on the left, but this video is obviously not going to cover Donald, and I believe I have already covered Donald in the blue infantry analysis video. No, this video covers Sharena, who, believe it or not, is someone I invested into recently for AR. Now, the biggest difference you'll notice between Donald and Sharena on the right is that Sharena is a bonus unit in the image shown to the right in AR. She's a rotating bonus unit, so you can expect to see her, I think, like every 2 months or so. So you can expect to use her basically every 2 months, where Donald, you can use him whenever you want. And honestly, Donald's still fairly good to use pretty much all the time, whereas Sharena, you wait for the bonus season. However, there is one super important thing that I think a lot of people don't consider when it comes to, like, why would you invest in Sharena? First of all, Sharena's investment here is pretty much distant counter. Like, you don't need Null Seed Disrupt. I just had a Nyla, so I gave her Null Seed Disrupt. But Fensoleer is built in Dull Everything. It's also higher might weapon than Casablanca, and as a result of that, it's like a 0 feather investment with just distant counter fodder. Gives you basically max invested Donald to the left, and max invested Donald on the left is about 240,000 feathers, plus the same sort of fodder you would give Sharena. Yeah, Flower is also kind of working loose here. Donald's a good choice. He's a good tank, and I still see plenty of people use him successfully within light season. However, and this is where the deal breaker is, whenever you get a solid bonus unit, you don't have to drag around a garbage bonus unit. So Donald will pretty much never be a bonus unit in AR, and therefore you have to lug around a unit you may not have any synergy with your team. In fact, may have anti-synergy with your team by being like an infantry, and if you're running tactics, and let's say male Corrin or Lancina, then you have 3 infantry, which screws up tactics buffs. So dragging around a bad bonus unit tends to be the biggest difference between using Sharena and Donald. For example, using Sharena as a bonus unit means that you can pretty much carry around 2 supports, maybe a Dancer and Corrin, or Corrin and Kaden, or Corrin and Lancina, or just bring 2 Corrins, because why not? So therefore, the stat discrepancy between Sharena and Donald is significant when you consider something like that, because now you can pretty much devote your bonus unit into being your carry, rather than your carry being dragging around your bonus units. It's a big difference. And whenever I can get a solid, consistent bonus unit in AR, my weeks for offense become significantly easier. So, you know, I've actually said investing into the Askr trio as solid rotating bonus units could be a legitimately good strategy when playing AR. So, if you're uncertain on whether you should do something like this and you just have random distant counter fodder lying around, just commit to the choice, man. You probably won't be disappointed. The amount of stats you can stack using 2 supports, or just the flexibility in your plays, is good. Now, let's actually talk about what sort of support you want to bring for Sharena, because that's really what it comes down to. You know, this is not a hard investment to make. It really isn't. In fact, I'm pretty sure at the time of this video being released, there's a distant counter banner, so you could probably get away with the investment right away, or recent, and like it won't take you much time to get there. So here's the first thing I would kind of recommend. Lancina. Now the reason I say kind of is because when it comes to team comp creation, this is kind of annoying because you end up with, like, let's say you use Sharena in Askr season. Right now I'm showcasing her in Light season where she has a more balanced stat spread, but if you wanted to use her in Astra, right now that situation would be like pretty much 4 blue units. 2 Nagas, Lancina, Sharena, and then you got your kicker support, which if it's water season is probably Legendary Azura, so you end up with 5 blue units. That makes your team very inflexible, playing into, let's say, a team that might have some greens. So while Lancina does provide that instant noontime consistent healing support, which is pretty good, unfortunately it comes at the drawback of having inflexibility when it comes to color coverage. On top of that, Lancina being a 5-star exclusive means, well, it's hard to merge her up and it's hard to soak chills off of Sharena. It's not impossible. As you can see on the left, she's still capable of soaking attack and speed off of Sharena, assuming equal buffs. So, not terrible. And the thing is with Sharena, she doesn't have incredibly high stats that it's impossible to soak chills off of. However, the unit I truly would recommend is probably Corrin, who you can merge up, who has a good stat spread, and pretty much covers every single base when it comes to soaking chills, as you can see from the template on the left. Plus, it evens out your team comp better. What that means is that he's red, he covers the greens that would otherwise completely overwhelm your team by running a predominantly blue team. So, Corrin is generally the better choice here. The thing is, you could just run both, because why not? Just super stat stack, put her somewhere, and win the game. But if you want some movement choices, you could also go with Kaden or Legendary Azura as well instead of Lancina, or you just don't have Lancina. So those are all pretty good things to consider. Of course, if you don't run Lancina and you don't run for all the time, then you don't want to use Noontime. Soul is generally better as an option when it comes to healing, because you'll get it every second combat, just as you would with Noontime without Lancina. Okay, and finally, if you don't want to, or you can't commit, or your playstyle is different, then there is a secondary Sharena build, which I definitely could recommend for you guys. And this does showcase curtains, but curtains is not required. You could totally use just Slaying Edge, or even Fencelir, kind of. I mean, I probably wouldn't recommend Fencelir because more consistency comes from using slaying weapons or cooldown reduction weapons, but you can definitely pull it off with a slaying lance. And yeah, the good thing about this is if you do actually have some infantry teams, and I feel like infantry is pretty good on Astra versus Light, and the reason for that is because Light ends up being versus Yoon teams that would speed stack, so it's harder to proc flashing blades on those teams, and it's easier on Astra. Therefore, Sharena would be better as providing Gale Force support with an infantry team by being the bonus unit and giving people pulses through curtains and slaying lance. So Flashing Blade 3 also comes from Summer Yilger. You know, not a fairly high investment. You could definitely pull that off, and it comes with decent combinations. Like you can use Navarre, you can use Sylvia. If you have an Axura, that's pretty good too. Basically any melee dancer with some pretty high HP that could also pull someone else who could get the initiation started for Gale Forcing teams. That provides a lot of flexibility when it comes into a lot of teams that you play, because you have like 3 Gale Force units to work with. Like let's say your 2 Nagas are smiting and you have 3 infantry units that all pretty much can infantry pulse each other. You end up having fairly consistent Gale Force sweeps this way. So yeah, do recommend it, and maybe get some ideas here to use Sharena better. This has inspired me, of course, to also invest and possibly cover both Alphonse and Anna as options in the future for you guys to look at. I definitely feel that the Askr trio, believe it or not, can cover 3 different strategies pretty well, which is Alphonse as like a distant counter vantage unit, because he has a brazen built into his weapon, so it kind of makes sense, plus he has a really high attack stat. Then you have Sharena here, who pretty much has a really good stat spread for tanking, and finally Anna, who seems to have a decent stat spread for Gale Force teams. So yeah, I definitely feel like I'll cover all 3, or I've covered 1 here in this video, but the other 2 in the future, so you can definitely look forward to that. And I feel like these are just really budget and decent choices to make as investments. I mean, like, distant counter Sharena is not that much of an investment to make nowadays, and you know, if you don't want or don't have that sort of fodder to make, maybe consider bumping her into some infantry teams, or at least pulsing maybe a tank. You know, like even if you're not gale forcing her, just having infantry pulse on a 70 HP unit and you use an infantry tank could be really good to accelerate some sort of special that would otherwise not be active. Like, for example, lightning breath, noontime dragons, which I otherwise don't really recommend, but you know, at least you'd bring a noontime down to 2 charge, which means with Lancina or steady breath you get yourself a turn 1 heal, which increases consistency of said tank. So definitely consider this in the future. I hope you guys took something out of this. I will definitely see you guys in the next video. As always, much love, thumbs up, sub to the channel, and I'll see you guys later. Peace.